3 weeks had passed since the battle with the Cathara. The station had become a place of beauty again. Crystal gardens grew in rooms that had been dark for thousands of years. The broken instruments had repaired themselves and were making soft, gentle music that filled the corridors with peace. Jake stood in the main hall watching Amy and Corvin work together. They were teaching each other their different types of music. Amy showed Corvin how human violins worked, while Corvin taught her to grow crystal instruments that responded to thought and emotion. "Try again," Corvin said gently. "Do not think about making the crystal grow. Think about the music you want to create and let the crystal feel that desire." Amy placed her hands on a small piece of crystal and closed her eyes. She imagined a violin, but one that could create the flowing dimensional harmonies that Corvin's people used. Slowly, the crystal began to change shape. It grew strings of pure light and a body that seemed to float in the air. "I did it," Amy said with excitement. "I actually grew an instrument." "Yes," Corvin said, and his silver face showed something that might have been a smile. "You are learning to think like a Velothi. Soon you will be able to create living music." Captain Park walked into the hall carrying a communication device. "Corvin, we're getting messages from other Velothi across the galaxy. They want to know what happened here." Corvin touched the large crystal control center. The room filled with voices speaking in the beautiful flowing language of the Velothi. Jake couldn't understand the words, but he could hear the joy and relief in every voice. "They are thanking us," Corvin translated. "Thanking humanity for helping them break free from the curse." "How many survived?" Ben asked. He had been working with Corvin to understand Velothi biology and medicine. "More than we hoped," Corvin replied. "Nearly 200 across 50 star systems. They were scattered and hiding, but now they can come together again." Tom Wilson was working on the human ship's communication system. "We're also getting messages from human space," he said. "Word about what happened here is spreading. A lot of people want to meet the Velothi." "And we want to meet them," Corvin said. "My people remember humanity now. We remember that you came to help us when no one else would." Amy was practicing with her new crystal violin. The music she made was different from anything human instruments could create. It seemed to move through the air like a living thing, creating patterns of light and color. "Corvin," she said, "what will happen now? Will the Velothi rebuild their old civilization?" Corvin was quiet for a moment, thinking. "We will rebuild. Yes, but not exactly as we were before. The curse taught us things about ourselves. We learned that beauty and peace are not enough if you cannot protect them." "You want to become warriors?" Jake asked. "No," Corvin said. "Warriors destroy. We want to become guardians. We will use our harmony to protect other peaceful species from enemies like the Cathara." Captain Park nodded approvingly. "The galaxy needs guardians. And we will need teachers," Corvin continued, looking at Amy. "Human music is different from ours, but it has power we never imagined. If we combine our knowledge, we could create something new," Amy finished. "Something that's both human and Velothi." Over the next few days, more Velothi began arriving at the station. They came in ships that looked like they were grown rather than built, vessels of crystal and light that moved through space like living creatures. Jake watched as the first Velothi refugees landed. They looked like Corvin did now, tall, graceful, beings with silver skin that seemed to glow from within. Their faces were alien but kind, and when they spoke, their voices created harmony even in normal conversation. But Jake could see the sadness in their eyes too. These were people who was everything and spent thousands of years as monsters. Even though they were healed now, the memories of what they had done while cursed would stay with them forever. "They blame themselves," Amy said, watching a group of Velothi standing together in silence. "Yes," Corvin agreed. "They remember destroying their own cities, their own families. The curse made them do terrible things. But it wasn't their fault," Jake said. "I know that. You know that. But they do not feel that yet. Amy picked up her violin, the human one she had brought from Earth. She began to play a simple, gentle melody. It was a song about forgiveness, about healing, about the possibility of starting over. The Velothi heard the music and turned toward her. Slowly, they began to move closer. One of them, a female with intricate patterns of silver on her skin, began to hum along with Amy's melody. Soon, all the Velothi were singing together. Their voices created harmonies that no human throat could make, but Amy's violin wove through their song like a golden thread, connecting human emotion to Velothi mathematics. Jake felt tears on his cheeks. The music was telling a story of loss and hope, of curse and redemption, of two species learning to understand each other. When the song ended, the female Velothi approached Amy. "I am Liren," she said in careful human language. "I was a healer before the curse. I want to thank you for giving us back our voices." "Music belongs to everyone," Amy replied. "It doesn't matter what species you are. If you can feel emotion, you can make music," Liren nodded. "Then perhaps you would teach us about human emotion. We understand Velothi feelings, but human feelings seem different, simpler in some ways, but also more intense." "I'd love to," Amy said. Captain Park was talking with several Velothi who seemed to be leaders. "They want to establish formal contact with human government," she told her crew. "They're offering to share their crystal growing technology in exchange for musical knowledge and protection treaties." "Protection from what?" Ben asked. "The Cathar are still out there," Corvin said. "Our harmony weapons drove them away, but they will rebuild. They will try again. And there are other species like them, beings who fear beauty and try to destroy it. Then we'll face them together," Jake said. "Humans and Velothi." "Yes," Corvin agreed. Together, Amy was teaching a group of young Velothi how to play simple human melodies on crystal instruments. Jake watched as the children, for they seemed like children despite being aliens, laughed and experimented with sounds they had never heard before. "You know what this reminds me of?" Amy said to Jake. "What?" "A music school. This whole station is becoming like a giant music school where different species can learn from each other." Jake looked around at the beautiful halls filled with the sound of humans and Velothi making music together. Crystal instruments grew next to human violins and keyboards. Alien voices harmonized with human songs. The Cathar thought they were destroying the Velothi, Jake said. But really, they just scattered the seeds of their culture across the galaxy. And now those seeds are growing again, stronger than before. Corvin approached them, carrying something in his hands. It was a crystal violin, but one unlike any Amy had grown before. This one seemed to contain tiny stars within its structure. "This is for you," Corvin said, offering it to Amy. "It is made from the first crystal that responded to your music, mixed with elements from my home world. It will always remember the song that broke our curse." Amy took the instrument carefully. When she touched the strings, they produced notes that seemed to come from the heart of the galaxy itself. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "As are you," Corvin said. "All of you. You came to us when we were monsters and saw the beauty that was hidden inside. You taught us that curses can be broken, that hope can survive even the darkest times." Amy raised the crystal violin to her shoulder and began to play. The music that came from it was the story of their entire adventure, the discovery of the station, the fear and wonder of first contact, the sadness of learning about the curse, and finally the joy of healing and friendship. As she played, Jake realized that this was just the beginning. Humans and Velothi would explore the galaxy together now, spreading music and beauty to worlds that had known only silence and fear. The beast had become beautiful again. But more than that, beauty had found new forms, new expressions, new ways to touch the hearts of beings across the stars. And in the crystal halls of the ancient station, the music played on, a bridge between worlds and a promise that some things are too beautiful to ever truly die. 2 weeks later, the Harmony dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, staring at something that made no sense according to everything he knew about space. The planet hung before him like a giant jewel, but it was surrounded by bands of colored light that moved and shifted like living things. The lights formed barriers around the world, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and violet, creating what looked like a massive rainbow wrapped around an entire planet. What am I looking at? Jake asked. Dock Commander Pete Williams was bent over, his instruments taking readings. The energy output is incredible, Captain. These aren't just pretty lights. There's some kind of force field system, but unlike anything in our databases. Amy Chun worked at her communication station, trying to make sense of the readings. The barriers are generating their own gravitational fields, and they're singing. Singing? Jake walked over to her station. Each colored band is producing a different musical tone. Listen. Amy played the audio through the bridge speakers. The sound was haunting. 6 different notes, each one pure and clear, creating a chord that seemed to hang in space itself. The harmony was perfect, but it also felt alive, as if the planet was breathing music into the vacuum around it. Dr. Lisa Park studied her readings with wide eyes. The mathematical relationship between the frequencies matches the original signal we received. This barrier system isn't just defense, it's a musical instrument on a planetary scale. Lieutenant Bobby Clark called out from navigation. Captain, we're getting pulled toward the planet. The gravitational effects are stronger than they should be for a world that size. Pete checked his engineering readouts. The ship's hull is starting to vibrate. The frequency is matching the planet's song. Jake could feel it now, a subtle trembling in the deck plates beneath his feet. The harmony was beginning to resonate with the alien music. Can we pull back? Trying, sir, but the engines aren't responding normally. It's like the ship wants to match the planet's frequency. Jake made a decision. I'll stop. Let's see what happens. The harmony drifted closer to the rainbow barriers. As they approached, Jake could see that each band of light was incredibly complex. What had looked like solid color from a distance was actually made up of millions of tiny particles, all moving in perfect coordination. Captain, Amy said, excitement clear in her voice. I'm detecting patterns in the barrier movement. There. Not random. It's like a code. What kind of code? Musical notation. But not human notation. This is something else entirely. Amy's fingers danced across her controls. I think I can translate it. Jake watched as Amy worked, converting the alien light patterns into something their computers could understand. After several minutes, she looked up with a smile. It's a song, Captain. The barriers are singing instructions. Instructions for what? How to get through safely. The original signal we received wasn't just music. It was a key. A harmonic key that tells us how to pass through the defense system. Pete shook his head. That's impossible. You can't phase shift a starship using music. But Dr. Park was nodding enthusiastically. Actually, it makes perfect sense. If these beings evolved to use sound as a form of technology, then musical harmony would be their version of a password system. Jake looked at the rainbow barriers surrounding the planet. They were beautiful, but he could sense the incredible power contained within them. One wrong move could destroy the harmony instantly. Amy, are you sure about this? The math checks out, Captain. The original signal contains the exact frequencies we need to safely pass through each barrier layer. Jake took a deep breath. Pete, can you modify our engines to produce those frequencies? Pete was already moving toward his engineering station. I can try, but we'll be flying blind. If the calculations are wrong, then we become space dust, Jake finished. I know, but we didn't come this far to turn back now. The next hour was tense as Pete worked to modify the ship's systems. He had to rewire the engine output to produce musical tones instead of just propulsion. Amy helped by providing the exact frequencies they would need for each barrier layer. This is crazy, Pete muttered as he worked. on turning a starship into a giant musical instrument. Finally, the modifications were complete. Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. They were all watching him, waiting for his decision. He could still turn back. He could follow Admiral Torres's orders and wait for the military fleet, but the planet's song was calling to him. The rainbow barriers pulsed with promise and mystery. Whatever was down there had been waiting for humanity to find them. They had sent their music across the stars as an invitation. Amy, begin the harmonic sequence. Amy's hands moved across her controls, and suddenly the harmony began to sing. The ship's engines produced a low, thrumming note that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The whole vibrated in perfect rhythm with the planet's barriers. The first barrier, red as blood, red as sunset, approached them. Jake held his breath as they entered the field of moving light. The red particles swirled around the ship, but instead of destroying them, they seemed to embrace the harmony like old friends. Barrier 1 passed, Amy reported. Moving to orange. Frequency. The ship's song changed, rising in pitch. The orange barrier welcomed them through, then the yellow, each transition smooth and graceful. Jake felt like they were dancing with the planet itself, moving through layers of music made visible. The green barrier was different. As they passed through it, Jake felt something touch his mind. Not words, but emotions, curiosity, wonder, and something that might have been joy. Did anyone else feel that? Dr. Park asked quietly. Several crew members nodded. The blue barrier brought feelings of peace and ancient wisdom. The violet barrier felt like greeting an old friend after a long journey. Then they were through, floating in normal space above a world unlike anything in human experience. The planet's surface was covered with cities that looked like they were made of crystal and light. Tall spires reached toward the sky, all of them glowing with soft, pulsing radiance. Life signs? Jake asked. Amy checked her sensors and frowned. That's strange, Captain. I'm detecting energy patterns that could be life forms, but they don't match any biological signatures we know. It's like the life signs are made of pure energy. No solid matter at all? None that I can detect. But the energy patterns are incredibly complex, and they're singing. Jake looked down at the crystal cities far below. Somewhere down there, beings of pure music waited to meet humanity for the first time. The rainbow barriers behind them continued their eternal song, no longer a wall but a doorway. Take us into orbit, Bobby. Let's see what kind of life exists when music becomes the foundation of an entire civilization. The harmony settled into orbit around the singing world, and Jake Morrison became the first human to look down upon a planet where music itself had learned to live and dream. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the shuttle bay, watching his away team prepare for the most important mission in human history. Commander Rick Davis checked his equipment one final time. He was a solid man with steady hands and calm eyes. Exactly. The kind of person Jake wanted leading first contact with an alien species. Dr. Cake Roberts packed her scientific instruments carefully. She was the ship's xenobiologist, a specialist in alien life forms. Though she had never expected to study beings made of pure energy. Her red hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her green eyes sparkled with excitement. Remember, Jake told them, we're not explorers or conquerors down there. We're guests. These beings reached out to us with music. Let's respond the same way. Rick nodded. Understood, Captain. We'll follow their lead. Dr. Lisa Park joined the away team, at the last minute carrying her violin case. If we're going to communicate through music, we need someone who speaks the language. Jake watched the shuttle descend toward the crystal cities below. The planet's surface was even stranger up close. The buildings seemed to grow from the ground. Itself, all curves and flowing lines that pulsed with soft light. There were no straight edges anywhere, no hard corners. Everything looked organic, as if the entire city was alive. The shuttle landed in what appeared to be a central plaza surrounded by tall spires. Rick led the team out on the ground that felt warm beneath their feet, even through their boots. The air was breathable, but filled with a constant gentle humming. The planet itself was singing. No signs of physical inhabitants, Kate reported, scanning the area with her instruments. But the energy readings are off the charts. There's intelligence here, but it's not like anything we've ever encountered. They walked deeper into the city, their footsteps echoing strangely in the musical atmosphere. The crystal buildings around them pulsed with different colors, creating patterns that seemed almost like communication. "Look at this," Dr. Park said, kneeling beside what appeared to be a fountain. But instead of water, streams of pure light flowed upward, creating shapes in the air before dissolving back into energy. "It's beautiful." Rick was studying his scanner readings. "The energy patterns are getting stronger. Whatever lives here, we're getting closer to them." That's when Kate made the discovery that changed everything. She was adjusting her instruments when she accidentally tuned them to a specific frequency. Suddenly, the air in front of her shimmered, and a figure appeared. It wasn't solid like a human. Instead, it was made of flowing energy that held the shape of a tall, graceful being. The creature glowed with soft green light and seemed to be composed of pure music made visible. When it moved, Kate could hear gentle melodies in the air around it. "My God," she whispered. "It's been here the whole time. We just couldn't see it." The energy being noticed her and turned. Where its face should have been, Kate saw swirling patterns of light that somehow conveyed emotions, curiosity, wonder, and something that felt like greeting. Rick raised his hands to show he was unarmed. "We come in peace," he said, though he doubted the being could understand English. But Dr. Park had a different idea. She opened her violin case and began to play a simple melody, the same tune that had been part of the original signal from space. The effect was immediate. The green being's glow brightened, and it began to pulse in rhythm with the music. More figures appeared around them as Park continued to play. Dozens of energy beings, each one glowing with different colors and singing different notes. They seemed drawn to the human music like flowers turning toward the sun. Kate adjusted her instruments to different frequencies and discovered she could see more of them. "There are hundreds of them," she reported through her communicator. "Maybe thousands. They exist at different energy frequencies. That's why we couldn't detect them normally." The beings began to move closer, their musical voices blending together in a harmony that made the air itself vibrate. Kate felt the sound in her bones, in her heartbeat. It was the most beautiful thing she had ever experienced. One being, larger than the others and glowing with a rainbow of colors, approached Dr. Park as she played. When it spoke, its voice wasn't words but pure music that somehow conveyed meaning directly to their minds. "Welcome, music makers," the being said, its voice like wind chimes and flowing water. "We have waited so long for others who understand the songs of the universe." Rick found he could respond by humming, his rough voice somehow translating into concepts the beings could understand. "We received your signal. We came to learn." "You are the first," the rainbow being replied, its glow shifting through different colors. "Many species reach for the stars, but few reach for the music within." "The stars. We are the Melodians. We evolved beyond flesh long ago, becoming pure harmony." Kate was fascinated. "How is that possible? How do you exist as living music?" The Melodian that answered her glowed with deep blue light. "Your species measures existence through matter and energy. We learned to measure it through frequency and resonance. We became the songs we loved most." Dr. Park stopped playing for a moment, and the Melodian seemed to dim slightly. "You feed on music?" "Not feed," the rainbow Melodian corrected. "We are music, but music alone is not enough. It needs emotion, feeling, the spark that gives it meaning. Your species has something we lost long ago, the ability to feel music as well as understand it." Rick was beginning to grasp the implications. "You've been watching us?" "For thousands of your years," another Melodian replied, this one shining with golden light. "We watched your species develop music, saw how you connected emotion to sound in ways we have forgotten. Your music carries joy, sadness, love, loss. things we can calculate but no longer experience. Kate made another adjustment to her instruments and gasped. The entire city around them was filled with melodians. They existed in layers of reality, some visible at certain frequencies, others hidden in harmonics that human ears couldn't normally detect. "How many of you are there?" she asked. "We were once numbered in the billions," the rainbow being said, its glow becoming dimmer. "But we are fading. Pure mathematics without emotion is not enough to sustain life forever. We need the passion that your species brings to music." Dr. Park understood immediately. "That's why you sent the signal. You weren't just greeting us. You were asking for help." The melodians around them began to sing together, their voices creating a harmony so complex and beautiful that tears came to Kate's eyes. But beneath the beauty, she could hear something else, loneliness, and a deep sadness that came from millions of years of existence without feeling. "We offer knowledge," the rainbow melodian said. "Technologies beyond your current understanding, ways to travel between stars using harmony itself. But in return, we ask for something your species has in abundance." "What?" Rick asked. "Teach us to feel music again. Show us how to put our hearts back into our songs." The away team looked at each other, realizing they weren't just making first contact with aliens. They were being asked to save an entire civilization from fading into the silence of space. The melodians had achieved perfect musical knowledge. But in doing so, they had lost the very thing that made music meaningful. Dr. Park raised her violin again and began to play a human lullaby, something simple and full of love. The melodians gathered closer, their energy forms pulsing with an ancient hunger for the emotions they had forgotten how to feel. For the first time in human history, Earth's children were needed not for their strength or their technology, but for their ability to love music with their whole hearts. The next morning, the rainbow melodian that had first spoken to them appeared in the shuttle. Commander Rick Davis was reviewing his notes when the air suddenly filled with colored light and the being materialized beside him. "We are ready to begin the tests," the melodian said, its voice like distant thunder mixed with violin strings. "But first, you must understand what we ask of you." Rick called the rest of the away team together. Dr. Kate Roberts brought her instruments, while Dr. Lisa Park carried her violin. They had spent the night in the Crystal City, sleeping in chambers that hummed with gentle melodies that made their dreams unusually vivid and peaceful. "Tess?" Rick asked. The melodian's form shifted to deeper blues and purples. "For millions of years, we have watched species develop music. Most create simple rhythms, heartbeats made into sound. Some discover melody, the voice of individual thought. Very few achieve true harmony, the cooperation that makes many voices stronger than one." Kate adjusted her scanner to keep the melodian visible. "And humans have all three? Your species is unique. You feel rhythm in your bodies, melody in your minds, and harmony in your hearts. But feeling is not enough. We must know if you can. Teach others to feel as you do." Dr. Park opened her violin case. "What kind of tests?" The melodian gestured, and the air around them changed. They were no longer in the shuttle, but standing in a vast circular chamber made of crystal that reached up into darkness above. The walls pulsed with different colors, and the floor beneath their feet was marked with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and move. "3 challenges," the melodian explained: rhythm, melody, and harmony. Each represents a different aspect of musical evolution. Pass all 3, and we will share our knowledge with your species. Fail, and we will fade into silence, and your people will never hear from us again. Other melodians began to appear around the chamber, hundreds of them, glowing in different colors and humming different notes. Rick realized they were an audience, watching to see if humanity was worthy of their trust. "I'll take the rhythm challenge," Rick said without hesitation. The chamber around him changed, becoming a space filled with floating drums of different sizes and materials. Some looked like earth drums, others were unlike anything he had ever seen, crystal cylinders that glowed when struck, metal spheres that produce deep bass notes, and organic shapes that seem to breathe. Rhythm is the heartbeat of civilization. The melodian explained. It connects all living things to the pulse of existence. Show us that you understand rhythm not just as sound, but as the foundation of life itself. Music began to play, complex polyrhythms that came from all directions. At once, Rick had played drums in a band during college, but this was far beyond anything he had ever attempted. The alien rhythms overlapped and intersected in ways that hurt his head to follow. But then he remembered something his old music teacher had told him. Rhythm wasn't just about keeping time. It was about feeling the heartbeat of the music. Rick placed his hands on the nearest drum and closed his eyes, letting the alien rhythms wash over him. He started with his own heartbeat, tapping out the steady pulse that had kept him alive for 35 years. Then he added his breathing, the rhythm of walking, the cadence of speech. Slowly, he began to match the alien patterns, not by copying them exactly, but by finding the human emotions that connected to their mathematical precision, the melodians. Around him began to glow brighter as Rick's drumming filled the chamber. He wasn't just keeping time, he was telling the story of humanity through rhythm. The beating of hearts in love, the march of soldiers protecting their homes, the running feet of children at play, the quiet tapping of fingers by someone lost. In thought, when he finally stopped, the chamber was silent, except for the echo of his final drumbeat. "You understand," the rainbow melodian said, its voice filled with something that might have been wonder. "Rhythm is not mathematics. It is life expressing itself through time." The chamber changed again, and Dr. Park found herself surrounded by instruments from a dozen worlds. There were human violins and pianos, but also melodian instruments made of pure energy that responded to thought rather than touch. "Melody is the voice of the individual," the melodian explained. "Each being in the universe has their own song. Show us how one voice can carry the hopes and dreams of an entire species." Dr. Park picked up her violin, the familiar weight of it comforting in this strange place. The challenge seemed impossible. How could one melody represent all of humanity? She began with a simple tune, something her grandmother had sung to her as a child. But as she played, she let the melody grow and change. She added the songs of different cultures, the blues from America, folk melodies from Ireland, ancient chants from Asia, the rhythmic music of Africa. The melody became a river, flowing from one musical tradition to another, carrying pieces of every human culture she could remember. She played the sound of laughter, the silence of prayer, the chaos of cities, and the peace of quiet forests. The melodians around her began to sing along, their energy forms pulsing in harmony with her. Violin. For the first time in millions of years, they were hearing music that carried the full spectrum of emotion, not just mathematical perfection, but the messy, beautiful complexity of feeling. When Dr. Park lowered her violin, several of the melodians were glowing so brightly they were almost too bright to look at. "We have forgotten," one of them said, its voice shaking with something like tears. "We have forgotten that melody is not just sound organized in time, it is the soul made audible." Now came the final test. The chamber expanded until it seemed to have no walls at all. Rick, Dr. Park, and Kate found themselves standing in space itself, surrounded by stars and the music of the cosmos. "Harmony," the rainbow melodian said, "is the most difficult of all. It requires many voices to work together, each maintaining their individuality while becoming part of something greater. This test cannot be completed by one person alone." Kate looked around in confusion. "But there are only 3 of us here." "No," the melodian replied. "There are 200. Suddenly Kate could hear them, the voices of the entire crew of the Harmony somehow connected across space to this moment. Captain Morrison's steady baritone, Amy Chin's clear soprano, Pete Williams's rough bass, and dozens of others, all waiting for direction. "We need to sing together," Dr. Park realized. "All of us as one voice." Kate activated her communicator. "Harmony, this is the away team. We need the entire crew to sing with us." followed Dr. Park's lead. What happened next had never occurred in the history of either species. 200 human voices joined together across the vacuum of space, guided by Dr. Park's violin and unified by their shared hope for the future. They sang without words, letting their voices blend and separate and blend again in harmonies that grew more complex with each passing moment. The melodians around them began to sing as well, their energy forms pulsing and flowing in patterns that matched the human voices. For the first time in eons, mathematical perfection and emotional truth came together in perfect balance. The song they created together filled the space between stars, a harmony so beautiful that it seemed to make the universe itself pause to listen. When it finally ended, the silence that followed was not empty but full, pregnant with the promise of wonders yet to come. "You have passed all 3 tests," the Rainbow Melodian said, its voice filled with joy that made its energy form dance. "With new colors. Welcome to the greater symphony. Children of Earth, let us teach each other the songs we have been waiting our whole existence to hear." Captain Jake Morrison was reviewing the reports from the away team when Amy Chun's urgent voice cut through the bridge chatter. "Captain, we have incoming ships. Multiple vessels dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system." Jake rushed to the main screen and felt his heart sink. A fleet of Earth military vessels was approaching, 15 heavy cruisers and a massive dreadnought flagship. At the head of the formation was Admiral Susan Torres' command ship. "How long before they reach us?" Jake asked. "At current speed, 6 hours. Bobby Clark reported from navigation. Jake activated the communication link to the away team on the planet's surface. "Rick, we have a problem. Admiral Torres is here with a battle fleet." Commander Rick Davis's voice crackled back through the speakers. "Understood, Captain. The Melodians are aware of the approaching ships. They're concerned." "Doctor," Kate Roberts added, "the energy beings are starting to fade, Captain. Whatever they're planning to share with us, they're running out of time." Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. They had discovered something beautiful and ancient, something that could change humanity's understanding of the universe. But military protocol demanded that he report to Admiral Torres and follow her orders. "Amy, open a channel to the flagship." Admiral Torres appeared on the screen, her stern face unchanged from their last conversation. Behind her, Jake could see the bridge of a warship, all sharp angles and weapon controls so different from the gentle curves of the Melodian city below. "Captain Morrison, you are in direct violation of your orders," Torres said without preamble. "You will withdraw your away team immediately and prepare to transfer all data about the alien contact to my command. Admiral, with respect, we're in the middle of first contact with a peaceful species. They're sharing incredible knowledge with us." "Peaceful?" Torres laughed coldly. "Captain, those energy signatures we're detecting could power weapons beyond our imagination. This entire system could be a trap." Jake felt anger rising in his chest. "They're not weapons, Admiral. They're living beings made of music. They're dying, and they need our help." "That's exactly what they would want you to believe, Captain. Stand down and prepare for military assessment of the situation." The communication ended, leaving Jake staring at a blank screen. He knew Admiral Torres well enough to understand what would happen next. The military would study the Melodians, like specimens, looking for ways to turn their musical technology into weapons. The beautiful, ancient beings would become tools of war. On the planet below, the away team was witnessing something heartbreaking. The Melodians were gathering in the central plaza, their energy forms dimmer than before. The Rainbow Melodian, that had served as their spokesperson, was barely visible, its colors fading to pale pastels. "What's happening to you?" Dr. Lisa Park asked, clutching her violin. "We are old," the Melodian replied, its musical voice weaker than before. "Older than your species has existed. We have maintained ourselves through pure mathematics for millions of years. But mathematics alone is not enough to sustain life forever." Rick watched as more Melodians appeared, hundreds of them, all growing dimmer. "The emotional connection to music, that's what you need to survive?" "Yes. When we evolved beyond physical form, we thought we were becoming perfect. But perfection, without feeling, is not life. It is merely existence. We have been slowly fading ever since. Kate was taking readings with her instruments. How long do you have? Not long. Perhaps days, perhaps hours. The approach of your warships accelerates the process. Their aggressive intent creates discord in the harmonic fields that sustain us. Dr. Park raised her violin and began to play, pouring all her emotion into the music. The melodians around her brightened slightly, drawing strength from a human. Feelings in her song. Can we help you? Is there a way to share our emotional connection to music permanently? The rainbow melodian pulsed with faint hope. There is a way. But it would require your species to accept us as partners, not subjects for study. We would need to merge some of our essence with human musicians, creating a bridge between our mathematical perfection and your emotional truth. Rick understood immediately. You're talking about a permanent bond. Some of your people will become part of human musicians, and some humans would become part of your collective. Yes, both species would remain themselves, but we would share the gift of feeling music completely. Your people will gain access to our harmonic technologies, and we will gain the emotions we need to survive. On the Harmony, Jake was faced with the most difficult decision of his life. He could surrender to Admiral Torres and watch the Melodians become weapons research. Or he could fight back and risk being branded a traitor to his own species. Amy Chun looked up from her communication station. Captain, I'm monitoring military communications. Admiral Torres is planning to use sonic weapons to disable the planetary defense barriers. Sonic weapons? Jake felt sick. Those barriers aren't just defenses. They're part of the Melodians themselves. Attacking them would be like attacking their nervous system. Pete Williams was checking the ship's defensive systems. Captain, if we're going to make a stand, we need to do it now. Once that fleet gets within weapons range, the Harmony won't stand a chance. Jake looked out at the crystal cities below, thinking about the ancient beings who had waited millions of years for someone to understand their music. They had reached across the stars with a song, hoping to find others who could feel what they could no longer feel themselves. Amy, send a message to all Earth frequencies. Full broadcast, maximum range. Sir, tell them what we found here. Tell them about the Melodians, about their music, about what they're offering humanity. Let people decide for themselves whether first contact should begin with songs or with weapons. Amy's fingers flew across her controls. Within minutes, the story of the Melodians was traveling across space toward Earth. News networks, amateur radio operators, and communication satellites would all receive the same message. Humanity had found aliens, and those aliens needed help. Admiral Torres's angry face reappeared on the main screen. Captain Morrison, you are now officially relieved of command. Prepare to be boarded. I don't think so, Admiral, Jake replied calmly. This is still my ship, and these are still my people. And we're going to protect the Melodians until Earth decides what kind of species we want to be. Jake turned to his crew. Anyone who wants to transfer to the Admiral ship can do so now. No judgment, no consequences. But if you stay, we're probably going to be labeled criminals. Not a single person moved. Amy Chun spoke for all of them. We came out here to explore and discover, Captain, not to turn everything we find into a weapon. On the planet below, Dr. Park continued to play her violin while the Melodians grew dimmer around her. She could feel their ancient sadness there. Fear of fading into nothingness after eons of existence. But she could also feel something else, hope. Hope that humanity would choose compassion over conquest. Music over war. The battle for the soul of first contact was about to begin. On one side stood those who saw the universe as something to be conquered and controlled. On the other stood those who believed it should be explored with wonder and respect. The Melodians waited in their crystal cities, their music growing fainter with each passing moment, while two different visions of humanity's future approached through the darkness of space. The message from Earth arrived just as Admiral Torres's fleet moved into attack position. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Harmony, watching the military ships prepare their weapons, when Amy Chun suddenly looked up from her communication station with tears in her eyes. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. It's beautiful." The main screen lit up with images from humanity's home world. But these weren't military orders or government commands. Instead, Jake saw something that made his heart. Saw people singing "Dot" in New York City. A crowd had gathered in Central Park with violins, guitars, and voices raised in harmony. In London, the London Symphony Orchestra was performing an impromptu concert on the steps of the Royal Opera House. In Tokyo, children in school uniforms sang traditional songs while their teachers wept with joy. The broadcast had reached Earth, and humanity was responding not with fear, but with music. "Captain Morrison," came a new voice over the communication system. It wasn't Admiral Torres, but someone Jake recognized, Secretary General Maria Santos of the United Earth Government. "The people of Earth have heard your message about the Melodians. We are ordering Admiral Torres to stand down immediately." Admiral Torres's face appeared on a split screen, her expression furious. "Madam Secretary, with respect, you don't understand the military implications of this technology." "Admiral, I understand perfectly," Santos replied firmly. "The people of Earth have voted through their songs. We choose to meet our first alien contact with open hearts, not closed fists. You will withdraw your weapons and allow Captain Morrison to complete his mission." Jake felt a wave of relief wash over him. But down on the planet's surface, the situation was growing desperate. The Melodians were fading faster now, their energy forms becoming so dim that even with the modified scanners, Dr. Kate Roberts could barely detect them. "They're dying," she reported through the communication link. "The conflict in orbit is creating discord in their harmonic fields. We're losing them." Dr. Lisa Park was playing her violin with tears streaming down her face, pouring every emotion she had into the music. The few Melodians who remained gathered around her, drawing what little strength they could from her human feelings. "There has to be something we can do," Commander Rick Davis said desperately. The Rainbow Melodian, now barely visible as a faint shimmer in the air, spoke with a voice so weak it was almost a whisper. "There is one way. But it would require a leap of faith from both our species." "Tell us," Park said, never stopping her playing. "The permanent bond we spoke of. It must happen now, before we fade completely. But once begun, it cannot be undone. Some of your people will carry our essence forever, and some of our people will become part of human consciousness." Rick looked at the dying beings around them. "What do you need us to do?" "Play," the Melodian said simply. "Play with all your heart, and let us join our songs to yours." On the Harmony, Jake was watching the confrontation between Admiral Torres and Secretary General Santos when Amy suddenly called out, "Captain, I'm detecting massive energy changes on the planet." "Something's happening." Jake looked down at the crystal cities and saw them beginning to glow brighter than they had since the Harmony's arrival. But it wasn't the same mechanical pulsing. As before, this light seemed alive, warm, filled with emotion. Down in the central plaza, something miraculous was occurring. As Dr. Park played her violin, the Melodians began to sing along, but their voices were different now. Instead of pure mathematical harmony, their songs were filled with the emotions they were absorbing from the human music: joy, sadness, hope, and love. "It's working," Kate breathed, watching her instruments register impossible readings. "They're stabilizing." But the process required more than just Dr. Park's music. The Rainbow Melodian gestured weakly toward the communication device Rick carried. "We need the others. All of them. Every human who can sing." Rick activated his communicator with shaking hands. "Harmony, this is the away team. We need everyone to sing. Not just the crew, everyone on Earth. Everyone who can hear this. The Melodians are dying, and only human music can save them." Jake understood immediately. "Amy, broadcast this on all frequencies." Emergency override. Everyone needs to hear this. What happened next will be remembered as the moment humanity truly became part of the galactic community. From Earth to the Kepler system, human voices began to sing. The crew of the Harmony sang on their bridge. Admiral Torres' fleet, despite their military orders, found their crews singing in their quarters and corridors. On Earth, the impromptu concerts became worldwide choruses. People sang in their homes, in the streets, in offices, and schools. They sang lullabies and folk songs, rock anthems, and classical pieces. They sang in English and Chinese and Spanish and 100 other languages. But somehow, all those different songs became one song, a harmony that stretched across space itself, carried by the communication networks and amplified by technology. The Melodians had shared down in the Crystal City. The dying aliens began to change. As human emotion poured into their mathematical perfection, they became something new, beings that were both energy and feeling, calculation and heart. Their form solidified slightly, becoming more visible to human eyes. While their songs gained a warmth that only emotion could provide. At the same time, something was happening to the humans participating in the bonding. Dr. Park felt her understanding of music expand beyond anything she had ever imagined. She could suddenly hear harmonies that existed between the notes, mathematical relationships that her human brain shouldn't have been able to process. Similar changes were occurring throughout the fleet, and back on Earth, musicians found themselves able to compose melodies that seemed to touch the very fabric of space-time. Scientists discovered that the mathematical principles underlying melodian technology were based on emotional resonance as much as physical laws. The Rainbow Melodian, now glowing with new life, spoke to the away team with a voice that carried both ancient wisdom and newborn wonder. It is done. We are bonded now, your species and ours. We are still ourselves, but we are also something greater. Kate looked at her scanner readings and gasped. The harmonic technologies they promise, I'm detecting them throughout the system. Faster than light travel using musical frequencies, energy sources based on resonance, communication methods that transcend the speed of light. But the greatest gift wasn't technology. As Jake watched from the Harmony's bridge, he saw the rainbow barriers around the planet beginning to change. Instead of keeping outsiders away, they were becoming gateways, portals, that would open for any species that approached with music in their hearts, rather than weapons in their hands. Admiral Torres appeared on the communication screen one final time, but her expression had changed. The anger was gone, replaced by something that looked like wonder. Captain Morrison, she said quietly, I believe I owe you an apology. My crew is reporting that they can hear music in the ship's engines. Now, in the computer systems, even in the life support machinery. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced. Jake smiled. That's the Melodian influence, Admiral. They're showing us that the universe itself is musical, if we know how to listen. Months later, Jake stood in a park on Earth, watching. Children played while holographic rainbows danced overhead to the sound of their laughter. The rainbows were created by Melodian technology, but they responded to human emotions, creating beauty from the simple joy of childhood. The first human Melodian exploration ships were already traveling to distant stars, their crews singing there, way across the galaxy. Wherever they went, they carried the message that the universe was vast and beautiful, and there was room in it for wonder as well as wisdom. Jake smiled as he watched the little girl chase one of the dancing rainbows, her laughter creating new patterns of light in the air. Humanity had reached for the stars and found music. In return, they had given an ancient, dying species something precious, the ability to feel joy again, somewhere over the rainbow. In the space between the stars, new songs were being born every day, sung by voices both human and alien, all part of the same eternal harmony that connected every living thing in the universe.